10, 15. No, I'm just kidding. You're gonna deal with my whack ass counting.
Oh, jeez. Who taught you how to count?
I count in vibes now because I have a child.
Makes
we
sense.
are on episode 20. Ooh, 20.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 20 of the Magus Brothers podcast. I am Tyler, and with me always is the Majestic.
Hey, y'all, I'm Feyerbrand, and thank you for joining us in another episode. Here we are, finally into the 20s. Look at us. We're slowly catching up to our age because we're 21 forever, so it's almost caught us.
In a couple of weeks, the podcast will be older than we are.
Yeah, 2 more episodes and it's older than us. I will stand by that. I am not in my 30s. I do not have children that are about to get their driver's permit. And
oh God,
yeah,
that aged me right there.
My oldest turns 15 this upcoming Thursday. Actually, the day this episode releases, my oldest will be 15. So,
well, happy early birthday to them.
Yeah, she's pretty excited about getting her permit, and she doesn't let me forget that she's about to get it because she's, will you teach me? Can we go drive?
Just like
here?
A little piece of paper slides in under your door, like in the middle of the night, like I'll be driving soon.
Yeah, and she's like, where's my car? I'm like, I don't know. I don't have any money for a car. Where's your job? Go get a job.
Where's your job?
Get that job, child. So yeah, I'm definitely only 21. That's what I tell myself. That's how I sleep at night. I don't have gray hair.
You look like you've seen some things for 21.
Yeah. Oh geez. To be 21 again. What was I? I was in the military at 21.
Yeah, you were.
You know what I was? I was a child soldier, just like the cast of Final Fantasy VIII. Welcome to episode 20.
Yeah, good segue.
Final Fantasy VIII, Children Soldiers.
Yes, we are continuing our coverage of Final Fantasy VIII. This may be our last episode covering Final Fantasy VIII. That entirely depends on, tangents and, if we feel like we've gotten everything said that we want to say on this topic. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the music, the characters, about the game, and maybe like a couple of things here or there that I just want to throw in with tangents. We touched on the characters a little bit last week. I started off with a bold statement about the character development of Squall and the lack thereof of Cloud. So we have throughout these couple of episodes talked about characters. But we're really going to kind of dig in and try and focus specifically on characters and the music. I want to start with the music with this because I feel like aside from a couple of statements, we have not really honed in on the music here. And we've talked about Liberi Fatale. Seriously, one of the greatest. Yeah, Liberal Fatalis, literally one of the greatest Final Fantasy songs ever.
True. Facts.
I try to do like a hard subjective stance with everything we talk about and reiterate that these are opinions. But Liberi Fatale, one of the best Final Fantasy songs ever, is a fact. Sorry,
dude. I mean, wasn't that the song that we were talking about? You want to be like your ringtone, like that's the song you want to slowly wake you up. It was like one of our first episodes ever, and I remember us talking about that. Like, it's just slowly brings you into the day to the point where you're just like amped up and you're like ready to freaking go, dude. By the end of that song, it's such like a good build up. Like listen to that on your way to like the club, and by the time you get to the club, dude, you're gonna be so amped to go out there and get shot down because you ain't got no game. So.
Oh my God, that was good. That song really is fantastic. It is a blood pumper, and it's epic, and that tied with the intro cinematic of that game, it sets the tone with that cinematic, and the song is just perfect. All on its own. Chocobo Band does a great cover of that song. Shout out to Chocobo Band for letting us use their music for our intros and outros. But even just the original song, and I feel like I read on, I think it was on Wikipedia, but I don't remember where this originally came from. It could be from an Ultimania or something like that. But I believe Final Fantasy VIII was the first Final Fantasy where Uematsu actually like looked at cinematics or what was going on in game, like the actual footage of the game, and that helped guide the actual song as opposed to just being like, here's some music I came up with, and they just like drop it into the game.
Interesting.
And I don't know if I'm sure it played a factor, but I don't know to what degree. But like that song, I don't know what came first, the cinematic or the song, but like them two together are perfect. I don't know what came first, the Liberty or the Fatale, but
the dragon or the liberal.
Yeah, right. But yeah, just beautiful. I love that song.
I never would have thought about it that way. Where did the composer watch the footage, like, to be inspired to write the music? Like, did he look at anything, or did he just like, this is like, does he have anything? Does he, hey, this is what the game is about, this is the vibe? Like, I don't know. I have literally zero musical talent, so I wouldn't even know where to begin.
One of those things are based off the other, because when you look at prior cinematics, like even with Final Fantasy VII, like there is some, I'm sure, like at least with the trailer or something, there was some like, okay, they cued the music, certain segments to go off at the proper time for like intros and stuff. So maybe a track here or two, because if you look at 7, you've got that whooshing sound, like that, like the wind as you are looking at the stars, and it pans down to Aerith, and like right as it pans down to her face, you get that like I don't know what instrument it is, but the tinkling, there you go. And then it kind of zooms out, and then when you see the logo, it's the dun 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 dun. So like that cues up perfectly. But like when you get to Liberty Fatale, like the way that everything lines up is even more perfect, and it's like a far more put together piece with more instruments, more layers. Not that the intro song for Final Fantasy VII isn't great, but it immediately loops into the bombing mission, and it like just loops and back and forth just real conveniently, like a lot of those songs do. And 8 was just so layered with with the choir. You had a choir. You didn't really hear anything like that until like One Winged Angel at the very end of 7, and they just bust out the door with 8, like huzzah, like check us out.
I mean, that's true. Like, I don't know, man. 8's intro, regardless of how he wrote the music for 8 or 7 or whatever, 8's intro still to this day, like, I could watch it and just get hyped. And 50% of it is the music, if not more than 50%, because not only is the music good, but all of the visual stuff that came along with it is also top tier, and they both play into each other so well. And I feel I guess this is kind of obvious, if one of them sucked, I wouldn't like it as much. But I feel like that's a very obvious statement.
Yeah, I feel like I really wish, like, if they don't, I feel like maybe like down the road they'll remake 8, right? But can we just get them to remake the cinematic trailer with the music, and like just do that with like souped up modern day graphics? Can we just have that?
They did that with Final Fantasy VII. Remember, they did the PS3 tech demo back in like 2010, 2012, somewhere around there. I don't remember, but they did the PS3 tech demo, and literally all it was supposed to showcase like how strong and how good the PS3 graphics are. And then did they know, that right there was like the pivot point. Like, a lot of people wanted the Final Fantasy VII remake by then, but that tech demo is what got everybody like clamoring for it. And then the following
you have to wonder if they knew, like, when they put that tech demo out, because obviously we didn't get a remake of Final Fantasy VII for so long after that tech demo.
Like a decade.
Yeah, but it's like, you have to wonder if they, like, the repercussions of them doing that tech demo with Final Fantasy VII, like, did they know the can of worms they were truly opening? Like, I'm sure they were like, people will be excited, but like, do they know? Did they know how excited?
I feel like they had to have known, because I mean, obviously, like Final Fantasy VII already had a movie. It already had spin-offs. It was already...
Was Advent Children out already? Oh, yeah, that would have
Advent Children was 06.
Yeah,
which
that's
was
right.
still No, PS3s were out then. I think PS3s were about to come out. Anyways, it doesn't matter.
Dates are probably way off.
But my point is the popularity of Final Fantasy VII was already known. So them releasing, like, they chose Final Fantasy VII for a reason for the tech demo. I feel it was to gauge the fans' response, like, oh yeah, we totally want this, or oh no, and then they're like, okay, well, we'll consider it now. But anyways, my whole point is tangents. My whole point is if they remade 8's intro in a tech demo type thing like they did, it would pivot into, I think, a big majority of the fan base asking for a full remake of the game. Because if you're active, in the big social media aspects of the Final Fantasy fandom, on the more popular sites, not really like the, don't go to 4chan or, the GameFAQs message boards is very hit or miss. That's another popular one. But I'm talking like you go into like your Reddits, your Twitter, Facebook, stuff like that. Like Final Fantasy VIII doesn't get the hate that so many people think it does anymore.
Well, I actually conveniently, I'm gonna stop you right there. And I don't know if you saw this because I just saw this earlier, but Audrey, our lovely Audrey, who translates everything from Japan for us, all the pertinent Final Fantasy news, we love her. There was a poll here very recently done in Japan, and it was like 28,000-ish people. So like, keep in mind, like,
that's a small number.
That's a decent amount for a poll, but like within Final Fantasy, even in Japan, like it can get way bigger than that. But they polled and ranked 1 to 10 what the favorite Final Fantasy games were. And I don't want to make this episode about these rankings, because I do just want to highlight where Final Fantasy VIII falls into this.
Number 4.
Is 4 your guess?
Yeah, it's my guess.
Okay, here we go. So number 1 was Final Fantasy VII.
What? I thought oh wow. Different poll.
This was very recent. This was very recent.
Okay.
Number 2 was Final Fantasy VI.
Okay.
Number 3 was Final Fantasy X.
Okay. Top 3. That makes sense.
Number 4 was Final Fantasy V.
Really?
Number 5 was Final Fantasy IV.
Interesting.
Number 6 was Final Fantasy XIV, which surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7 was Final Fantasy IX.
Too high.
Number 8 was Final Fantasy VIII. Number 9 was Final Fantasy XI. And number 10 was Final Fantasy III.
Interesting.
So 15 not even listed, 13
12.
Not even listed, 12's not up there. So like, again, not that this list is a baseline for anything other than these 28,000 people in Japan that they talk to. But Final Fantasy VIII is kind of in it's not, again, we love Final Fantasy VIII. It's not bad, but like, is it loved as much as we thought it once was? No. But is it as hated as we, no.
I think it's difficult to compare the two, because the social media circles that you and I run in are all Western social media. We're all English speakers, Europe, Australia, United States, Canada, all the big Western countries type thing. Those are the social media circles we run in. Now, the way, like, our cultural differences from the East and the West are just massive. And I think it's difficult to say that, like, because 8 ranked 8 in that one poll in Japan, it is no way is that, like, representative of the way the Western audience feels. And I'm not saying that's what you were saying. I'm just clarifying this for our listeners that, like, the culture is massively different, and video games will be way more successful in the West than in the East, and then there's other games that are way more successful in the East than in the West. And it's that cultural impact and difference. And I believe 8 would rank higher in a Western poll. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you. Before I kind of make my overall, I try to, like, encompass my point. I want to really specify that all Final Fantasies are great. If you love a specific Final Fantasy, your opinion is valid. We're here to love Final Fantasy as a franchise, even if certain Final Fantasies just were hit or miss for us. But more what I am specifically trying to kind of get is that there are certain Final Fantasies that are, no matter where you're at in the world, it seems like these Final Fantasies are the most popular.
True.
There are outliers to this. There are people who think 7 is overrated. There are people, even us, who think 6 is not as great as it, people claim for it to be. But Final Fantasy 7, 6, and 10 and 14 now, those 4 titles typically are like, with no matter what circle you're kind of like going in, like those 4, I would say, are like some of the most popular of the Final Fantasies. And as you start to pull away from those 4, I feel like it starts to get murkier. Some like, for example, you love 15, and there's a lot of division within 15. 13, there's a lot of division in. 9 is another one that's really, really popular, but like that you start to stray into more people who dislike 9, and I think we're kind of on the more outliers for not loving 9 as much as other people do. And as you get to 8, you're getting into more murkier water where it's again, it's not hated as much, but it's just not near those completely I'm going to say critically acclaimed, loved within the franchise. But that's more my point is 8, as you move towards 8, you start to get into murkier waters with who loves it and who doesn't love it.
Right. Now, like, I'm not trying to say 8 is top 3. I definitely feel 8 is on the higher side of the mid.
Agreed. I agree with that.
Overall.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
8's top 5 for me personally, but yeah.
Yeah, I need to play more Final Fantasies before I do like a definitive top rank. Like that'll be like a later thing in our lifetime of the podcast where we do a definitive ranking. Which I am looking forward to.
We'll do tier lists. There's a tier list website that we will
I've
create.
Seen those. That'll be fun. That'll be great. We'll do it like a blind tier list and put it together, and then like that episode we'll like look at each other and be like, what were you thinking? But
it's like going back to the compatibility quizzes you take with your significant other.
Yeah. That'll be great. But going back to the music for Final Fantasy VIII, I made a statement, and we've kind of hit on this a couple times, but Final Fantasy VIII's music overall, and I want to emphasize the overall aspect because I do think that there are highlights to other Final Fantasies, but overall, as like an average, Final Fantasy VIII's music is probably my favorite. There's something so nostalgic about it, and it's like going back home. When I think about when I am playing 8 and I hear that music, especially like the overworld theme,
Blue Fields.
It's just so good. 7's music is great, but I talked about like 7's got this really dystopian and kind of anxious feel to it. Like it really feels like a little bit darker, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, I wouldn't put 7's music on if I were doing like a calm study cram session or just vibing around the house. Whereas like 8's music is really, a little bit more upbeat. You've got blue skies, you've got, Libere Fatale is not necessarily like a feel good, just cleaning the house type of thing. That's more of a like, hell yeah, start your day. Like you've got to go. But songs like, The Man with the Machine Gun, and even the battle music in 8 is so good.
I actually don't remember the name of the battle track. I know Man with the Machine Gun is When You're Laguna. That's its battle track, but
is it though? It's not those who fight further.
Yeah, Those Who Fight Further. Isn't that?
I thought that was 7.
No,
hold on. I'm looking right now.
Final Fantasy VII's is literally like Let's Fight or something. It's like something super generic.
Wait, is it Force Your Way?
Maybe
Force Your Way. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is. So
I'm terrible with music names,
dude. Like I'm bad with video game, like track names to video games. But the music to 8 is just superb. It's really, really good. I definitely think it's like a step up from 7, and again, I'm not saying 7's music is bad. I'm just saying 8's got a more nostalgia feel to it for me.
7's is ranked a 9 out of 10, and 8's is ranked a 10 out of 10. Like,
yeah, right.
And 7's is still good.
Yeah. So 8's just, the music is just so perfect. I don't know. 8's one of those like I could just put on and just vibe with all the time, and I don't know if it's just because I want to say I've played 7 more times through than I have played 8, but I feel like I have spent longer playing 8 than I have 7, because 8 there's more to do, and especially if you're getting into like the card games and the min-maxing aspects of running around in the overworld, you just spend more time playing to completion and doing all the side content with 8 than you do 7. Like, there's just no disputing that for me. And you've got Shuffle or Boogie, like
yep,
that song is like burned into my freaking psyche from like playing the card game as much as you can like do in that game.
Oh yeah, I remember you went and got like the Lionheart on disc 1 before. I feel like I remember you doing that within the last year or two. And if anybody out there's ever done that, a massive portion of that is playing cards, because you got to get like the 10 or 12 Elnoil cards to turn them into bullets, the pulse ammo,
and like
or something.
You can get that from like Kesis Treppy number 3, but they don't always have it, and you might not always beat them, and it's just like you spend a lot of time doing those cards.
Oh yeah,
and like,
it's like hours of card grinding and.
But the song's so good, like you don't mind it. Like I gotta give it to them. Like, they could have, if they were gonna put in a way to min-max that game as hard as you can with cards, at least the song was dope. Like, can you imagine if the song for Triple Triad was like grading?
Literally anything else.
But thinking about it, like Triple Triad running through, like the music in the garden is so good too, running around Battleland Garden.
It's just chill. And you know what's funny is when a lot of people tend to mention the music from 8, a big track that's spoken about a lot as something that a lot of people love and they like to vibe to and chill and they just enjoy listening, is actually the Fisherman's Horizon theme.
That song is good too. I can't.
But here's the thing, I don't like it. I always skip it. I always skip it when it comes on. I'm not a fan. I don't know why. It doesn't. Something about it.
I'm not placing it in my head, but a lot of people do love Fisherman's Horizon. Yes. I'm not placing it right now, thinking about it. I'm trying to like take my mind back there, and the song's not coming to me. But you know what song is also great is Eyes on Me. Oh, that's such a good one.
We did talk about that song and the history behind that for 20 minutes. Not only is the song actually good, but go listen to our previous episode to learn the history about it and why it's so just so perfect of a song.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't. The music to 8's so good. I'm pretty sure that like tomorrow while I'm working, I'm gonna not listen to any podcasts and I'm gonna listen to the soundtrack of 8.
So here's something funny. So when you think of like Final Fantasy VII and you think of the music, one of the most popular tracks is One Winged Angel, which is the final boss fight. Now, what music do you hear during the last boss of Final Fantasy VIII? I don't fucking know either. I have no idea.
And that's the thing, is like some of the it's interesting because I feel like the music to 8 is iconic. Iconic might not be the wrong word, because I feel like the music for Sephiroth is iconic, and I don't know that any track in 8 truly hits the iconic level within the fandom or like pop culture sphere. So maybe saying iconic is not the right word, because I feel like 8 is really the love of 8's music is really subjective. Whereas objectively, like no song has really broken through the barrier for Final Fantasy like One Wing Angel has.
Right.
Which is fine. But the songs that really captivate me from Final Fantasy VIII are like in not the wrong places, but like in interesting places. Like, it's understandable that Liberi Fatale is good, like being the intro song.
Right.
But then like the other songs that really, really hit for me are like, I couldn't tell you what the song to the final boss is, and you'd expect that one to be a banger.
Right. I'm pretty sure it is. Like, I still haven't finished my slow play, but I will soon. It's supposed to be beaten in a month, and we're going into month 3 right now. So
yeah, I mean, you've had a crazy couple of months, man.
I know.
But like you'd want the overworld music to be good, and like that's good.
It is too.
I feel like the 7 and 8 overworld music is really good. Like 7's overworld music is amazing. It's just got a different vibe to it.
That's actually their overworld music is actually the main theme of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I love that theme in Final Fantasy VII because I feel like it captures Final Fantasy VII perfectly, but it's just a little dark and a little bit of a downer, and it's a very specific mood.
Right.
Whereas Final Fantasy VIII's just like yeah, it's got a feel good element to it.
Yeah, 8's music, like you said, man, because like there's you go Balam Garden and Balam Town, the Blue Fields, Fisherman's Horizon, like the theme, like you feel like you're supposed to be on vacation chilling throughout so much of the music, where you just let me just kick back and just vibe to this music, and then you get into a battle, and it's whatever the battle song was called, Force Your Way, and it's so freaking good. And then you're with Laguna, and Laguna's the man with the machine gun. That is my favorite, not counting Liberal Fatalis. Man with the Machine Gun is my favorite track from 8 because it's that good. Like,
isn't the Man with the Machine Gun where it's like dun 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 dun. Yeah, that's such a good song.
It's like so upbeat, and it gets you're paying attention. You get your blood moving, pumping around, but at the same time, you don't feel that anxious battle energy. Like, oh, if I screw up, I'm gonna die or something. It's, I don't know. They definitely capture some interesting feelings with that song, and I'm sad it doesn't play that often within the game.
Yeah. Well, let's segue off of music a little bit, and let's talk about some of the characters in Final Fantasy VIII. We'll just ping pong all over the place with these characters because that's what we do. But of course, we're gonna lead with Squall, and we've talked a lot about Squall, so I don't want to spend too much time with him.
We've actually talked quite a bit about most of the characters.
Yeah. But I just want to emphasize that Squall is probably one of my favorite protagonists of any of the Final Fantasy series because I feel like he's got true growth. I feel like young me, we've touched on this earlier, young me was very like, oh yeah, like Squall is emo. But then like as I became an adult and was like, man, Squall's been through a lot and he does have a lot of growth. And works hard on expressing himself and being vulnerable and like trusting his friends and all of these. Like it does really feel that way throughout the course of the game, and I love Squall. And
I think that's a
great character.
I think that's a big thing about him because he's like 18, 19 in that game, somewhere around there. He has the traumatic garbage childhood, raised to be a soldier after he got shipped there from the orphanage, like just a truly awful childhood. Like, there's nothing more you can say, but he goes from that to being thrust into a position of power where he's given control of the garden and basically being like, hey, go save the entire world or we're all going to die. You're the only one who can do it. And like, this is an 18-year-old kid. What would you do if you were told that at 18? And like, I know that's like a super massive trope within Japanese media, like the high schooler, young kid, main character, protagonist type deal that goes and saves the world through friendship and all that. Like, I know that's a huge like Japanese and anime thing, but I didn't grow up in that culture. I'm thinking of this from a Western way. And like, dude, when I was 18, I was dumb as heck. I was a stupid kid. Like, obviously we're a product of our upbringing, but I don't know, man. Like, he was put against impossible odds. Basically, the entire game, he was on the verge of just like a mental breakdown because everything was just so much for him. And like that was so much of his inner dialogue, was just all of that turmoil of just like, why me? What am I doing? Why are they looking at me? I have no idea what I'm doing. Why would anybody believe in me? And like he's doubting himself through this whole entire game. And we see it. We see all of that inner turmoil. And that's when everyone's like, oh, he's so emo. And it's like, he's not emo. That's self-doubt. He's
just been through some shit.
He's just been through it, and he's doubting himself. Who wouldn't doubt themselves in this situation? But like, you see that growth. He pushes through it, and he comes on the other side stronger, better, and a little more well-adjusted.
Yeah, I feel like it's safe to say Cloud is my favorite protagonist, but because there's something about like the disorders and the way the game kind of inspects Cloud's psychology and trauma and the memory and the subconscious and all of those things, that's really, really interesting to me. And I love Cloud 4 with the way they handle the PTSD and the trauma and et cetera, et cetera. But as far as like character growth beginning, A to Z, Squall's probably my favorite. Like Squall's journey is probably my favorite, even though Cloud is my favorite character. But moving from that, we'll go to Rinoa. Rinoa is again one of those characters where we talk about like some of the great female characters in Final Fantasy, and a lot of times because we're so ingrained with 7 with the remake out and the shipping wars, I feel like Tifa and Aerith are always right in my face.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're on Twitter.
Yeah. And I am. And so like I'm always thinking about Tifa and Aerith. And then it's like right behind that, you think about Yuna, because Yuna is such a strong, complicated, complex, like amazing journey character, and Yuna's so great that when I think about female protagonists, I think about those three, and I think about Terra, because Terra's great, and I have like a personal attachment to Terra. But it usually stops there. But then like we started talking about 8, and like I started getting these memories of Rinoa, and I'm just like, man, Rinoa is such a great character. Like she's got, again, drawing kind of some parallels. Tifa is not a bad is not a bad character, let alone Final Fantasy character. But Tifa, especially in this part 1 of remake and for most of Final Fantasy VII, Tifa is a character that's very unsure of herself, and I don't want to say timid, but she has a very big lack of self-confidence because it's tied into Cloud, him not remembering this trauma, Tifa not being sure what to do, et cetera, et cetera. Completely understandable. But I would say Rinoa's more Aerith adjacent in the fact that Rinoa's flirty, she's pretty confident, and she's kind of a goofball. And those kind of traits align more to like Aerith's side of the sphere.
Right.
I have this part of the game where Rinoa's all up in Squall's face, and she's like doing the little hand gesture, and she's like, "You are going to like me," or she's like messing with Squall or something, and like that's a very Aerith thing. And there's that part later where she's trying to like change the direction of like a buggy or some type of like tank they hijacked, and she's like shoving Irvine down into the driver's seat, and you can just see her legs up sticking out of the top.
To make him go back and save everybody from the prison because he was just going to abandon them.
And just like the fact that like she's got like these quippy little comments, and like, well, this is more about, I think, Squall and Irvine, but like there's the part where she like dresses up to meet Squall out on the date, and there's like a dirty magazine there, and she's just like, and she just like plays it off, but then like proceeds to mock Squall, doing like his same motions and stuff like that, and then when he swings at her, and she just like rolls away, and even when you first meet her, the fact that she's just like, "Hey, Squall, you're the best looking guy here." Insert hilarious meme with those graphics. And, just drags his ass out to the dance floor and is just like, "Yeah, let's do this." But then when the other couple bumps into them, she like hisses at them, like, "Back off." Like, Rinoa's one of those, like that character where like if she were a little bit more scrappy, she would like throw down in a restaurant for somebody like bumping into her table or something like that. And like Rinoa's just, man, she's got a lot of personality. I love Renoa. Like, she is so much fun.
And it's funny that you draw those, comparisons, because I feel the exact same way. I love Renoa. She's like one of my favorite women characters from all Final Fantasies. And it's funny because of how much I dislike Aerith. And
I think, and I'm gonna take a shot in the dark here. And you tell me if I'm wrong. Aerith is in a lot of ways a lot of the things that overlap with Renoa. I don't think there's any disputing that. But one, Aerith is especially within Final Fantasy ages, is a good deal older than Renoa. I think at the end of the day, I think she's only like 4, 5, 6 years older in that range. But that's with the way they portray characters in Final Fantasy. That's a pretty sizable age difference. And Aerith has got that whole, even though she is all of those things, Aerith has got this very mother of the planet, this protector vibe going on, and she's got a little bit like up on a pedestal feel to her. And
maybe that's it.
Renoa is younger.
B word.
I'm not going to say those things, but Renoa's younger, and it doesn't have that whole on a pedestal thing. Like, Renoa does have like a little bit of a princess vibe to her, but that's different than what Aerith does. Like there's that part where she's like, her dad comes to talk to her, and she's just like in the fetal position on the floor, like with her knees up, and she does the like hand wave, like
go
away with you. Like Renoa's definitely got some princess energy to her. But it's different. Upbringing. It's different than Aerith, and
absolutely,
I think she's just got the right blend of things.
Maybe that's what it is. So
I love Renoa.
As we said in the last episode, she fists her dog's butt and shoots it off her arm. So
I mean, yeah, he can't really beat that. Just launch a dog like it's an RPG. Oh man. Good stuff. Okay, so moving away from Renoa, let's do Keistis. Let's
that's Keistis here. That's Whip Mommy.
Whip Mommy. Keistis is interesting because she has this whole teacher, like she's the instructor at first, and there is some like she has feelings for Squall, or does she has feelings? And I think she even later addresses it like, oh, like I thought I had feelings for you, but that wasn't it. And I forget what she kind of talks about, but Keistis is very much a character trying to kind of find herself throughout the course of the game.
Absolutely.
Like, is she an instructor? Does she have feelings for Squall? Is this her place? And she's older than Squall and them, but really not by much, like to the point where you're like, oh, she's a teacher, and she's
like a year or two.
Yeah, a year or two older, and that's it. But Keistis is a smart character, and is kind of trying to find her role and what she does, but does have the mommy in Whip Mommy.
Yes.
And and there's not a whole lot to say about Keistis because again, I don't feel like the other characters in 8 have like strong arcs. I feel like Keistis does kind of come to terms with what her role is and like the rest of the party, but like there's not some profound element to Keistis that I found.
But right there, that scene that you mentioned where she was like questioning, like, oh, I guess I didn't have feelings for you. That was the end of her character arc. Like,
yeah,
that was her resolution. And I followed.
My resolution is, I guess I don't really have feelings for you, and it was something else.
Because like from the beginning of the game, now you got to think about this, okay? From the beginning of the game, she's like a year or two older than Squall, okay? From the very first time you meet her, she is like flirting with him. She is trying to relate with him. She's trying to get him to open up. She wants to be friends with him. She wants a relationship with him, whether that's a romantic, a friendship, companionship, anything. She wants something. She needs something. And
you know what she needed? She needed that Lulu energy. Like, she needed that, like, I'm so over your shit energy that Lulu had.
She did need that, but they weren't that good at writing those type of
they were not
those BDSM characters yet. So anyway,
because you get that sense of it when she walks in on Cloud in the infirmary and she does that like shoulder shrug and the sigh and shakes her head like this guy.
Right.
She just needed to have that energy like the entire story. But continue.
And so like as you're going along and like she invites you out to the training center. And
what a terrible place to have a date. T-Rexes up on your, like, chasing you.
I don't know, man. They're children's soldiers.
She's just like, oh, this is where people sneak away to have time for themselves. And I'm just like, well, you could die. There's a T-Rex there.
The danger makes it more exciting.
Oh my God.
The only way I get turned on is the threat of death.
Lover's Lane is behind the T-Rex paddock.
So, but let's see. So the whole time she's trying to form a relationship with Squall. And like, as you learn like who she is, like how she was as a kid, where she was always the tattletale. She was going off and telling the adults that everyone else was breaking the rules. So that naturally made the other kids want to exclude her from everything because they didn't want to get in trouble, but they wanted to do all the stuff they weren't allowed to. So now she is isolated and by herself. So she doesn't fit in with her peers, but she's still a kid. So she can't go and be with the adults. Now, when she's at Garden and she's an instructor, her peers, age-wise, are Squall and the students. She's in their same age range, but she's their superior because she's their instructor. So she doesn't fit in with them. So she can't do anything with them. She has to maintain that level of professionalism. But then all of the other instructors are all older than her and, more experienced adults. So she doesn't feel that same camaraderie with them because they're all that much older than her. So here she is, just like when she was a kid, she's stuck in the middle. She can't, relate with her peers because she's in a position of power, but then she can't relate with the instructor peers because they're all so much older than she is. Just like when she was a kid. They excluded her as a kid because she was a tattletale, but then she couldn't go hang out with the adults, be the adult because she was still just a kid. So
wasn't Zella a tattletale too, or was he just the crybaby?
He was the crybaby.
Okay.
Keistis was definitely like the I'm gonna go tell on you. I'm the mom. You need to be doing what I'm telling. Bossy type of character as a kid, and that translated into her being an adult. And she was always stuck between the two worlds. I never really had anywhere. And that was like the resolution of her character arc, was her realizing no, she didn't have feelings for Squall. She just wanted friendship and companionship because she was stuck in the middle, so she didn't have anything.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of where it ended.
Well, that's a fair story worth telling. It just unfortunately doesn't dive to the emotional depth or power like Nanaki's story, or like hearing Barrett's story and stuff like that. Like, it's like, okay, like this is fair, but it just doesn't really pull on my heartstrings the way some of these other side characters does.
Absolutely not. Like, as stories go, it's good. But as Final Fantasy stories go, I feel like it's left a little wanting. It's just not quite up there with a lot of the other support main characters of other video games, other Final Fantasy games. So
agreed. I kind of mentioned Zell. Zell is probably one of my least favorite characters.
He's annoying.
Because he's annoying. His energy is a lot, and while I appreciate what the game is trying to do with that character and his journey, and the crybaby, and him trying to, it's just that whole like, I don't connect with that type of character. Like him showing up with a
very
hoverboard, and him showing up with a hoverboard and like, the like sitting there dancing around and like shadow boxing and stuff like that. And the way he like always, gets Cypher always gets his goat and always gets the better of him. Like, Zell's just so not in control with his emotions.
Yeah.
And again, there are a lot of people like that. I have known people like that in my life. And again, it's a fair representation of a certain type of personality. But like, even with that type of person in real life, I'm just like, oh, this is too much for me. Like, this energy, I can't do this
energy. Yeah, Zell very much, he was picked on as the kid. He was dubbed the crybaby child. And now as a young adult, he has that fake masculinity.
Always something to prove.
Yeah, exactly. He always has something to prove, that that false bravado, or however you say. And he's just always trying to prove that he's not the crybaby. But as you said, he's just not in control of his emotions because he's lying to himself and he just isn't emotionally mature. So it shows, and yeah.
Pass. Yeah. Irvine.
Let's talk about Irvine.
Oh yeah, the face tattoo, like the weird tribal face tattoo.
I liked Irvine as a kid, but I was also very into the whole cowboy vibe as a child because of, how and where I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
As an adult, I also didn't see the blatant sexism and garbage way that he treated people, women specifically, as a child, because I was a child and I wasn't raised to think that way. But now as an adult, he's just a Zidane to me. Like he's just scummy.
I will say that when we think about characters that are somewhat because there's degrees, right? It's all problematic. I want to highlight there, characters. Zidane's not a problematic character, but certain things he does are kind of problematic. And Edgar, going back to 6, the fact that he hits on a child at one point, and the way he's a womanizer and very, very flirtatious, Edgar's kind of problematic at some points. Irvine, I feel like he's all about hitting on women, but I don't really think Irvine touches inappropriately anybody or anything like that. He's just very very much the flirtatious, ooh, every time a female character comes into play. But then as soon as it's reciprocated by Selfie, or as soon as he kind of sets his sight on Selfie, I feel like he's pretty into Selfie and he stays pretty dedicated. He's not trying to constantly glom onto somebody's attention and ping-ponging all over the place the rest of the game. He does pretty just once he meets Selfie and connects with her, it's very apparent that that's where this is going.
I mean, you're right. It's, I'm not saying he's trying to go bang every woman in the world. However, it's just I think I might just be thinking too heavily into the first couple of scenes that you have with Irvine, because first impressions do matter. The first time you meet him, he's let's split up the party this way, and it's both women, or it's two of the women out of the group, and I don't remember the exact dialogue he says, but he gets all upset if you change it around and all this other stuff, and then you're on the train immediately after that, and Selfie's, all in the train, so she's singing out the window, and he's in there just disturbing her, and I'm just ugh. It's it starts off so poorly. I'm just and then you get to the prison and he just wants to leave everybody, and Renoa forces him to go back. So you're okay, even outside of the women aspect, you're just kind of a dirtbag. You're just gonna abandon everybody. Not saying, it's not like he knew all these. Well, I guess he, and that's the worst part, is he remembers all of them from their childhood. He's just gonna leave them. It's just just kind of a dirtbag, bro.
Yeah, I mean, Irvine definitely, there's some elements to Irvine that are questionable. I do try to, again, not being problematic and misogynistic to women is never okay, but I don't think that anything Irvine does is completely glaring, and I do try to give, if we're going to give all these other characters, especially Squall, for example, this grace of they're teenagers and they're still learning, Irvine falls within that, and I definitely remember having overeager moments in my teenage years of being a tryhard, and that definitely has that Irvine quality to it. But more than just the attention he has with women, one of the interesting things about Irvine, and one of the interesting things moments we have with him is fairly early on, where he's a they call him a sharpshooter, but he's a sniper, and he's got that whole lone wolf sniper personality that he tries to kind of carry. But when it comes time to take the shot against the sorceress, you find out that one, he has never shot anybody before, and two, he's it's all a front. Like it's bravado. It's like that's not like who he is. He's not really the lone sniper. He's actually a very charismatic, like bubbly person. And Squall talks with him and is able to get through to him, and he ultimately does take the shot. And like, Edie is just like, I'm a sorceress. Did you really think this was going to work? That is kind of an interesting moment with Irvine that you get almost very quickly after he joins the party. Like, and that's kind of cool because you don't normally, that seems like a character development moment where like they would put that off a little bit. So you really had more time to kind of like sit with this bravado of Irvine, but like almost immediately they're just like, nope, that's not really who he is.
And that's the end of his character development.
That's the end of his character development until later in the game when he's like, no, I remember you guys. Or until he's got a romantic interest in Selphie.
But what's funny, actually, that scene that you're describing, that sharpshooter scene at the end of disc 1, he actually admits later on that a big reason he had trouble making that shot was because he remembered her. And he was having a difficult time coming to terms with the fact that he was going to have to murder the woman who raised him.
They're just throwing. He couldn't say that at that moment, because they can't.
Because nobody remembered, and that's not the time to blurt that out. However, that he does admit that later on. That it wasn't just like. I feel like if it was anybody else, he probably could have made the shot better or easier. However, like he's basically shooting his mom, so
yeah. But at the same time, like he still does take that shot, and like he hesitates and he's got issues with it, but he ultimately takes the shot and
it's dead on.
Edie had not been a sorceress, that would have killed her because that bullet was like, dead on.
Oh yeah, it was a great shot.
So
I don't know, man. Like, and like with what you mentioned, where we're giving Squall a little bit easier of a time because he's a teenager, so he's learning. And then you said the same thing for Irvine. We could also say the same thing for all of these characters. Zell too, like Zell's personality type. You hope to see, like your 20s is so much of. You use so much of your 20s figuring out who you are. Well, I guess it depends on what your childhood was like, but like the majority of my 20s was me like unpacking all of that childhood baggage and, dumping all of my toxic traits that I had from my formative years. And, like none of these kids had a good childhood. So
no,
we can have hope that by the time they're, 10 years from when this game ends, they're going to be more well-adjusted and better people.
Yep. So let's talk about, there's 3 more characters I really want to hit on. Not hit on, but you know what I mean.
Whoa there, Irvine.
Whoa, I gotta calm down. Selphie. Let's talk about Selphie because she's the last of our main, party protagonists.
There's honestly, there's really not much to say about Selphie. She's pretty much who she is the whole time. She hides a lot of her sadness behind, trying to do things to make herself happy and having other people enjoy it. Like, I think that's why like the play and everything within the quad being built and, the theater and whatever that was. I don't remember what it was. Like, it was so important to her. Like, I think it gave her something to focus on so she wasn't constantly being depressed. And she had good reasons
she's
to
very
be
much
depressed.
like if there was going to be a class president, like that was Selphie. She's very much just like very active and like there and wanted to do fun things for people and is very much like you said, like a bury it and smile and have fun.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
That's very much, she was very much that type.
And she had good reason. Like, not only was her childhood crap, just like everybody else, but her childhood home, Trabia Garden, was literally blown up. And she probably, like, a buttload of her friends died. So, like, that poor woman, so she was very much the, sad clown,
but
like
wasn't
sad
Selphie
clown
always
underneath
like
with the happy makeup on top or whatever it is. That
yeah, but Selphie had some funny moments too. Like, wasn't there like points in the game where she was just like when you're assaulting the base or whatever to stop the rockets, she's just like smash it, and she's just like yes, like she's just got like that energy where she's just like everyone's like whoa, like
she's like I call her like almost like chaotic good.
Yeah, she very much chaotic good, and like she's got that like with a smile face, like she'd be the one being like murder, and you'd be like, "Whoa, dial it back, selfie. I appreciate your energy, but bring it back."
I hate to make this, but she's that Harley Quinn type thing. Just
yeah, just like not the psychosis and like the full on like,
but just like
over the edge. But she's just very much like the she'd be the one coming up
smash
with
it. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And that she's got that funny vibe to her.
And so like Selfie, I've never, been like, oh, I love her, I hate her. She's a character I enjoy, and that's really all I needed from her.
Let's talk about I'm gonna kind of lump these well, before we go that angle, we got to talk about Laguna. Laguna is a pretty prominent character, and you control Laguna. And I know Mary would have strong words for us if we did not talk about Laguna here.
I don't want to get her wrath. Okay.
Oh yeah, but Laguna's a great character. I will say that Laguna, stop me if I'm wrong here. Laguna, great character, terrible dad.
Oh my God, yes.
Can we talk about that?
Awful.
The fact that like the game just kind of glosses over that, like, yeah, I get that he got pulled off to war away from Rain. And
did he
alone.
Though? He wasn't even in the army anymore.
Well, no, but there was like a conflict that he went to go handle, whether it was a war or it was a conflict. But like the fact that he ended up president and then just didn't go back.
Right? Like, don't you just like search for your kids? Like you're running this massive technological city.
Yeah. And yeah. There's issues there. Great character, not a great dad. But Laguna is I used to not like Laguna because of how damn cheesy he was. Like that scene when you first are at the bar with Julia and like his friends are like, goading him, to like go up and talk to her. And he does like the leg cramp and like he like hobbles up to her, but like as he's walking up to her, like immediately turns to go back to like his friends. Like he's like, nope. But then he goes back to them and then turns back around and like hobbles over up to the stage and like waves and then like hobbles back. Like, dude, I thought that scene was so dumb as a kid, but like as an adult, I just like, that's so funny and so endearing. Like I was like, man, I love Laguna. He's such a goofball.
Like no wonder she took a liking to him, because she's just like, this guy's a massive dork. Like, yeah, I'm gonna keep this guy around. He's a dork.
He is like
adorable.
He is like a golden lab. Like he is a Labrador retriever. And like, I don't know how he's president. Like nothing in his story at all screamed somebody who's competent enough to like run a city, a nation, or anything like that.
Especially when that goes into outer space.
Yeah. But like, he is so charming and lovable and endearing and charismatic. And like, the way he like talks about getting his friends into like troubles, and he's always there and he's always happy. And there's a difference between like, there's a lot of, we were just talking about Selfie's very much like she's happy all the time, but like it comes off as like to bury down the sadness, whereas with Laguna, it feels like happiness and like the positive side, but like not to bury things, but like that's just his permanent state. Like all heavy, sad things just roll off of him. Right. And he's just like, we're gonna do this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
it's an infectious, fun personality.
I cannot for the life of me think of another example of a character, but I know if I was given long enough, I could. He's just like that guy who just keeps falling into things out of like pure dumb luck. And he's like faking it till he makes it. But he has like that, like you said, that lovable charisma to where people just want to keep giving him, shots. And, oh, you're so good. Your promotions. And like, I can't think of another character. I know given enough time I could, but like, that's just who he is. He's falling into opportunities and luck is on his side. So everything's always working out for him. And that's just who he is. And yeah, he just got lucky enough, and they're like, I don't know, maybe like his, or maybe like people feel sorry for him because he seems like a tad bit dumb, not like, I don't think he's like an idiot or anything, but just sort of maybe dense.
There is kind of like a naive quality to him.
Naive.
And like, I don't know that he's truly that naive, but it's almost like he plays that naive on the surface level real hard. And
maybe he does that so people underestimate him.
I mean, maybe, but you don't see enough of the other aspect of it to really like balance it out. He just kind of comes off as like really hopeful, naive, and you're just like, oh.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's like, oh, honey, like, oh, like,
yeah,
let me just help you out. I just want to, let me just get you, and we're going to go do things, and I'm going to get you ice cream. We're going to go to the zoo. We're going to have a good time. And like, you just want to do with him and just like take him around.
But
like,
you just want to do him?
Do things with him. It's like, I'm gonna get you some new shoes. I'm gonna make sure you got clothes. Like, you just want to take care of him. And then he's like, ha, you idiot.
Yeah,
you fell into my lovable trap.
He is so lovable. But Laguna's great. Again, I did not like him as much when I was a kid first playing this game.
No, I hated the
teenager
segments.
But now I love Laguna. And go back and listen to our previous episodes where we talk about the Laguna, Rain, Renoa, Squall, that whole love being destiny thing. That fated to happen love is real good. I love that part of the story. Lastly, I want to talk about not Renoa, Edea, and I want to talk about Ultimecia, because it's hard to. Did the bot fall out?
Yeah.
Do we need it in here?
Yeah.
Now recording.
I don't know where we left off with there, so
It was literally like you literally just noticed it. It was like a minute ago.
Did we finish talking about Laguna? I'm just gonna power through and assume we talked about Laguna.
Yeah. If you guys are listening to this and there's something missing, check out the YouTube video. It'll have it all in there. But
yeah.
I'm gonna do my best to fill that back in.
Yeah, do your best. Work some magic.
Okay.
Anyway, Edea, because Edea is possessed by Ultimecia for a good chunk of the game, and in my opinion, there's just not enough of Ultimecia soul by herself. I'm going to kind of lump them in together. Edea is a fascinating character because you don't know she's possessed for a while, and her design is great. Like when you see her and she's got like the headdress on, like it looks like a helmet, and the like freaking her like ribbons flying off of her, and she's got that like ornate shoulder thing going on, and like just the black gown with like the nails. There's like, she's a wicked design. Like I love Edea. And she's just like, when everyone's throwing her parade, and she just like kills the dude right there on the podium.
The president?
The president just like murders him, and then just like talks down to everyone like, you are filth or whatever she says. Dude, and everyone's just like, yay,
we love you.
Edea is great. I love her. But like, then you find out that like you get that twist of like, oh, like that's Sid's wife, and you're just like, oh damn, like
yeah,
that was a twist
wife?
right there.
Like, bro, you're married to this woman?
Yeah, and then you're like, we're trying to kill your wife, like, and you had to make that call, and then you feel for Sid for like a split second before you realize just how wholly incompetent he is.
Yeah, he's dumb and crap too.
Yeah, and but and then later you find out Edea is possessed, and like
right.
she loses that possession, and then she goes back to being matron, and she's like, you have that moment where you talk to her at the lighthouse, and she's very loving, and she's like all about her kids, and like they set this plan up way back when, knowing that the kids might have to kill her and all of this stuff. Like it's just like, dang, like that woman is strong. Like
yeah.
that, like to train, essentially, like had to go through all of this to train people, knowing that like they might have to kill you. Like that's rough. Like
I thought that was just interesting.
I would love more of Edea. Like if they remake that, I would love for her to be more prominent. And like, you know, I feel like once she's saved, you don't see her again until the lighthouse, and like you only see her for that segment. Like I would like to see her being more of a bad witch mommy, you know, and just mess people up in that, you know, like Edie is just good. I would love more of it.
I always felt in another life I was a witch. So
yeah, Edie is great. And then Ultimecia, like I said, you just don't get enough of her like to really do like a character study, not like Sephiroth or even what's the dude's name in 9? Kefka. No, not
Kuja.
Kefka, because you could Kuja and Kefka for that matter. You could both do like little character studies about them. You just don't really get enough of Ultimecia to really dive into that character too much. So I don't have a lot to say that I haven't already said. I just wish there was more
not even
Ultimecia.
The last boss of 9, so we can't count.
No,
Kuja.
but like he's not the last boss, but he is like for the most part of the game, he's the primary antagonist, and like he's there throughout most of it. Yeah, but I feel like
I know Kuja was until like literally the last second. I know.
Yeah,
I'm just being ridiculous. But so I agree, and I think Ultimecia literally was just there just to be evil. Like there's nothing more to it than that. And sometimes simple is best. Sometimes I don't need to, you know, like, should I kill Sephiroth? Should I kill Kuja? Like, Ultimecia? Absolutely. It's not even a question. Like sometimes it's nice just to have a villain where I don't have to sit there and question myself or their motives or anything. I just, she's garbage. Let's end her.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Like there is, and like really we do think Edie is the bad guy for most of it, and maybe their logic was like not knowing how we as fans or players would react to the bait and switch. So like finding out that Edie was the bad guy, and so they have Ultimecia there, and they didn't want to throw in a ton of investment to Ultimecia after already doing that with Edie. I don't know the reason ultimately, but I definitely preferred the idea of Edie being the bad guy as opposed to Ultimecia.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the villain we came to know and hate for most of the game. And then, like, there's a lot of twists within this game, if you think about it. Like, massive 180s flipping the narrative on the head of, you know, the entire, like, they knew each other their whole lives, and they were orphans. Sid was married to Edea. She's not actually in control. It's just like there were so many things that just kept flipping it on its head. And it's just like, what? Who alone was? Like, there was a lot of twists.
Yeah, there was. And there's one more character I forgot. We gotta circle around to before we wrap the episode up. We got to talk about Cypher. Cypher was
cringe.
A little cringe, yeah. Like I get Cypher. Like I get that the dude just. Kid really needed a hug. Like he was that one particular direction of like being abandoned, being an orphan, that was negative and resentment, and he really encapsulated a lot of that. And I get everything about his character and that trope of being the angry one, you know, the angry negative aspect, and you know. Kid just really needed a hug, and then like
absolutely
I feel like his character development, a lot of it happened too fast for me to really relate to. Like, you know, showing up to assassinate the president on live TV, but like he was doing it to like help Renoa and all of that, like in a twisted way. Like I got all that, you know, because you know initially there is some romantic aspect to Renoa and Cypher.
Yeah, they were dating.
Yeah. And so like I get him wanting to be there for her and like assist her in showing up. But like when it kind of starts making jumps for me too fast, which is when he runs off with Edea. It's like she shows up and like whispers some words, and then he's like, no, get away when she first shows up, and then she says some stuff, and then he's like almost immediately like, all right, peace guys, and he goes and leaves with her. And it's like, what? That was really fast. Like I get his particular brand of trauma to where like he could have got there. But like the game did it so fast. Like if she had been whispering to him, like in the movies where like the character, you've got that one character with the voices whispering and like it kind of builds up and then they do the bad thing. Like I feel like it would have made more sense, but like it's like literally like a 5-second scene where he goes from trying to help Renoa and like then to like joining the bad guy, and then he's with the bad guy for almost the rest of the game. And it's just like, what? Like that was very fast.
Well, I do know that like when you go on the first mission with him, he talks about how his romantic dream, or he says, I'm going to tell you about my romantic dream. And you find out later that like his romantic dream is like to be the sorceress's knight. And so like that was sort of planted earlier, but it was planted so poorly that you don't really catch it until another playthrough.
Like
no, you're right. It did. It all unraveled too fast, and it was poor. It was a poor plant. It didn't sprout and grow like it should have. And so like it was there, like they had the idea, they just did not execute it well. And like Cypher, you know, he's that grade school bully who their dad bullies them at home, so they go to school and bully the kids there.
Yeah,
kind of mentality.
Trope.
You know, he's very much that. And, you know, in the end, we don't even really know if he changed at all. We don't know.
I mean, we certainly see him like at the end, like goofing off with
Fusion and Raijin. They're like fishing.
Fusion and Raijin, and like they're fishing, and you full on see him laugh, like full body laugh at their antics, and you didn't really ever see that before. So like we're certainly led to believe that his heart is a little bit lighter, but like you know, what does that mean? Like him laughing, you know, we're supposed to infer some semblance of change there, but again, I overall, I get his journey in becoming Edia's knight and like why he would end up there, and that search for approval, even though he would like brush it off, and that need of purpose, and like, you know, even him going to protect and be Edia's knight is very similar to what he was doing with Renoa and wanting to protect her and help her and be her knight. You know, it's very much like I see that aspect in Cypher. I just wish they would have planted the seed better there and like let that like kind of slowly develop. And Cypher would have just been so good, like so much better.
Yeah, like he was constantly trying to prove himself because
I do love the angle of like, you know, in 7, the bad guy straight up like is like, we have Shinra and we have Sephiroth, but like nobody really feels like a true rival for, well, I mean, let me rephrase. Sephiroth is definitely a true rival for Cloud, but like on a different scale. Whereas like Cypher and Squall, like Cypher is very much a lesser antagonist, and like even then kind of not a full on like he wants the end of the world like antagonist. Like he's very much like a dude needed a hug and is a school bully that was given you know, for the lack of a better word, like given a weapon of mass destruction.
Pretty much.
And I can empathize with that, and like it's cool. It was cool to have that in Final Fantasy VIII, to have like a rival for Cloud more, or Squall more directly.
Yeah, and like the interesting thing about like all the characters definitely fit some trope of a young character trope. Like these aren't tropes you're gonna find in adults, or at least you would hope not to.
Yeah,
you know, like this is very much geared towards middle school and high school issues of emotional development, and like all of their strife and issues and turmoil and everything is just because they are so emotionally immature, because they are so young. And so like I could see this, like when I played this as a kid, obviously none of this was going to resonate with me because I didn't know what I was going through either. Like I was just as dumb as them, if not more dumb, because I didn't have a writing team writing my life. I had my own dumb head writing my life.
Right.
So, but now as an adult that I'm through all of those things and I have my own children entering those phases, I can recognize it. And I'm like, all these people need is like a mentor, somebody like sit them down and be like, hey dude, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. All these kids need is just group, like some therapy and some group therapy, you know, like.
Yeah. No, you're right. Like that's really all they is. Like, and that's okay. I don't need more out of these characters. Like, I don't need big, massive character arcs, for me to enjoy them or like them or anything. I think it's kind of nice.
These kids needed therapy, and Sid was like, "I'm gonna make you mercenaries."
Your therapy is just gonna be to shoot people.
Yeah,
take your anger out on the enemies that I tell you are the enemies.
Oh man, what a time. Poor kids.
War, right?
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. We appreciate you all coming along for our journey for Final Fantasy VIII. I believe Faye and I talked about it a little bit, but I believe we are going to start talking about and gearing up for Final Fantasy X. Whether we start that next episode, we might have like a little palate cleanser type in there before we dive into 10, but it is going to be the next Final Fantasy we jump into. And
unless something crazy happens. And Square Enix, like, we are doing whatever. Like, I don't know. As of right now, we don't know.
There's a rumor out there, which I'm not even going to call it a leak. It's just a rumor out there that there's supposed to be a PlayStation showcase in March, and that does line up pretty closely to. I think it's a State of Play. I said showcase, but the State of Play is coming in March, not been officially announced, and that does coincide pretty closely to Yoshi P saying April would be when we would hear more about 16. So who knows? But stuff might be coming down the pipe as far as Final Fantasy news that we might want to jump on. But 10 is going to be the next Final Fantasy we dive into and talk about. We'll probably have more to say about it than 8 because when we cover 10, there'll also be 10.2 and 10.2.5 to talk about. So yeah.
Yes. And Yuna is one of my favorite characters ever. I love her.
Well, in the meantime, Fayer, where can everybody check you at?
Y'all can find me at Feyerbrand on most social media things. I'm really active right now on my YouTube. If you're into Final Fantasy XIV, check out my guides. Also, you can check me out on Twitch, where I play a buttload of Final Fantasy and some Elden Ring. We're getting that Miyazaki gameplay in.
I can't wait to watch you play Elden Ring on stream.
It's so good. It's such a good game.
Just don't personal request, don't start out with like heavy mods because like I actually want to watch the game. Okay, cool. Great.
No.
And if you're enjoying the actual podcast, please subscribe, share, leave us reviews. Reviews are very important, especially if you can do it on Apple Podcasts. That's a massive help with the algorithm gods. And check us out on Twitter at Magus Brothers. Our website is magusbrothers.com. Tell your friends, tell your family, your coworkers, your dogs, anybody on Twitter, your cat. We don't discriminate against cats. Just tell everybody. And again, thank you for joining us for our Final Fantasy VIII coverage. And in the meantime, bye.